I have a question for you. Have you ever felt like you have lost complete control of your life? Well, travel back in time with me, 2013. For me, that was such an exciting time. I turned 40. And if you know my family, we know we kind of go all out for our events. We had belly dancers, had a DJ, we had Persian foods, just so delicious. Family from around the world came to be there. Friends and colleagues were there. And this was my family in 2013. Michaela was 6, Nicholas and Hayden 3, and there's my husband, Alex. So fun time. But I was trying to be responsible. It's 40 now. Of course, everything started falling apart. I felt like I had to get the bifocals. And all of a sudden, bags were showing up a little bit more. And I was like, okay, I better get and do my checkup. And by this time, it was actually May, because you know how it is being a busy woman in dentistry. We are running our practice, we're working in a practice, we have families, or we're starting a family, or we're finishing school, or we're doing our residency. We are also running the kids back and forth to and from school and extracurricular activities. And then we're just involved in our community and our church and all that we're so stressed in. So it was about May by the time I got to my doctor's office. And my friend said, okay, so everything check is good. You need to go get your mammo. I was like, oh, I'm 40. I have no family history. I need to go get my mammo. She's like, Layla, you need to go get your mammo. And I think had I not had a friend be my doctor, I probably would not have gone. And so it's May. And now, of course, it is the busiest time. It's the end of the school year. There's after school parties. You have to go get gifts for the teachers. There's all the recitals, the dance recital, the piano recital. And then, of course, there's Mother's Day and graduation. And oh my goodness, so much to happen. But alas, I finally went and got my mammo. So I go in and, basic practice, they take you back, have you put on a gown, put your belongings in a locker, go into a room. And I just remember just kind of going through the motions. I looked to the side and there's this poster, one of those feel good posters about advice from a tree, you know, always remember your roots, always go out on a limb, drink plenty of water, those things. It's like, pretty cool. So do the thing, get a booze match, get the picture, go back, change, and go about my busy day. Well, the next day, wasn't thinking much about it, getting to work after, rushing to get the kids ready for school and all that. And I got a call. I got a call from the radiologist's office saying, oh, we need you to return. We need a repeat view of your mammo. And I was like, oh gosh, it's so busy. I'm in pediatric dentistry, right? May is pretty busy. Everybody's trying to get in before they get the heck out of Dodge in the summer. I was like, oh, how am I gonna have time to do this? So finally, I do make my return visit, not even thinking about it, because I think just being too busy to even sit with the idea that something could be wrong. So I go. Now the people up front kind of know my name. I felt like it was a Cheers. I went back, same dressing room, changed into the gown. Creatures of habit. I put my belongings in that same locker that I had the first time. And I happened to be in the same room because the tree poster was there. And I go through the image and I'm thinking I'm done, I'm gonna get out of there. And then the tech was just like, okay, so if you just wanna have a seat here, the radiologist will go over the image with you. And then it's kind of hit me. Why does she need to see me? So I go into this dim room, and actually I knew the radiologist because her daughter was in gymnastics with my daughter. And she has this deep voice, kind of like Meryl Streep. And so I come in and it's dim and she's got all these monitors up and she said, Layla, come have a seat. I need to show you something. And so as I sat, I saw these images of my breast. And, when I go back and think about it, I remember too, I even, while waiting, thought, I better just have my phone set ready to record in case I hear something I'm not going to be ready to process. And as she shows me the images, I started thinking about like when we're showing our patients x-rays, their dental x-rays, and how when you're pointing there, you see that dark shadow there in between the teeth, and that's a cavity, and they're just kind of nodding like they know what you're talking about, but they really can't see. So she's saying this to me as she's pointing. You see these kind of white spots, these clusters, these microcalcifications. So these can be an area of concern. And I'm still not even seeing what she's talking about. I'm just kind of nodding my head, just like, okay. And so, Layla, we're gonna need to do a few more tests. And we just need to make sure that, a lot of times these cells can become cancerous. And then it kind of hit me. And I remember I even had to get back to work that day, and so much was happening in my mind. I was going to have to come back for a biopsy. I didn't really want to share too much with the staff or the team. It's just really just, and of course, not my children. And so it's just my husband knew. And just to kind of move things along, waiting for those results were the hardest things. And I was at work, and this was before having your Apple Watch, so you can kind of see if she was going to call. And I remember just at lunchtime, and of course, it's Tucson in May, and it's burning up. And so outside, I had this kind of marble bench that if you sat on it, it's like 300 degrees. So I kind of sat on the notepad that I was going to take notes on into here. And it took some time because they had to get another pathologist to get another opinion. It was hard. But it turned out the good news that was that they called it, or not called it, it is DCIS. It was the earliest stage of breast cancer. And, I just didn't even know how to take it all in, what was going to happen. All this time, I've been so busy, I didn't have time to really slow down. And all the tests that I had to do, I kept wanting to not miss work because I wouldn't have time to, or want to put my staff in the position to make it so difficult and to have to reschedule patients. And then I knew how upset patients were going to be that they were rescheduled, that when I had to get another, the biopsy, which was the stereotactic biopsy, which, by the way, I am not like my patients, and I never Googled anything before I went. And so I was so shocked when I went in to get that, and you had to lay on this table and on your side, and they kind of squish you in these cold metal plates. And then the sound of it is like a jackhammer, just going, and I had no idea what it was. And I remember afterwards, there was a hematoma and it was bleeding, and I felt so heavy. It felt like a grapefruit. And then I'm talking to my radiologist, finally asking, I was like, what could happen? What's the worst if I don't get it all? And it was a tough time, but we got through it. That day I just had to put the ice pack in my sports bra, put my scrubs back on, and get back to work. But with all of that, I still didn't want to make it hard on anyone else instead of putting myself first. And so getting diagnosed in May, I even scheduled my surgery not until August, because then, summer is the busiest time in a pediatric dental practice. There's no way you can reschedule all those patients. So put my health at risk to appease other people. And even after the surgery, and I'll share this picture, here's me on August 1st, and I share it for you to see the dates, that 25 days later, I was back to work. After a bilateral mastectomy, it usually takes 6 to 8 weeks. But I thought that I am all things to all people and had to do it, right? No one's really given me permission to stay home. And even when I was home and trying to heal, I was so blessed by so many people who would come and bring food and stuff for me. And I remember getting ready, even though I still had drains coming out from my armpits and the bulbs hidden in my robe pockets so that I could get around. And my husband's like, "Why are you getting up?" I said, "Well, do they have to know that I really appreciate it?" He said, "Layla, you don't have to do that." So anyway, go back to work 25 days later. And even at the point where I wasn't 100%, Alex had to help me pull my hair back in a ponytail because I couldn't raise my arms over my shoulders. That first day in the huddle, I had to ask the assistants if you could please reach the overhead light for the patients and bring it down because I can't raise my arm. I truly had not healed, definitely not physically, and surely not mentally. I started to resent work. I was burned out. I was irritable. I was frustrated. I was mad because while I was healing and I would check into the office and say, "How are the patients taking it?" And And I have to thank my partner who was holding down the fort. But she said, well, some people are being understanding, but then there's some people. I'm like, well, be transparent. Tell them what happened. And surely they would understand. Well, I will never forget when they told me, well, there's one mom, she was like, even after they told him I was recovering from the surgery, he said, well, my kid can't get braces until they get their teeth extracted. So when is she going to be back? So then you can see how I stressed to try to get back too early. So I get back and, it was just really tough. I didn't want to be there and I really lost my joy. And I had well, my partner and our practice administrator had an intervention of sorts. And they said, Shaw, the staff is coming to us and they're worried about you. You're not yourself. You're kind of short with them. And it was all true. I was just not happy and I had lost just the meaning of why I was doing what I was doing and why it just wasn't myself because I was just so resentful to my profession. But when it came down to it and I was losing control of myself, it wasn't the cancer that had me lose control. My cancer revealed that I had already lost control of my life. And from there, there's explaining that, you may need to maybe find a therapist or maybe find a life coach. I didn't even really know about life coaches. And so it was a wake-up call. I was like, okay, well, I got to make a difference here. I got to make a change. And so to wrap this up, and I was at my friend, the gynecologist, who I attribute for really helping me find this cancer so early. And she was having some after hours kind of wine and cheese thing as she was presenting her new laser. And I will never forget it, sitting there. And then just like we put up pictures of teeth and decay and broken down, just broken down teeth and everything that needs to be restored. She put up a whole screen of about 20 vaginas. And I will never forget, I was like, oh my gosh, there's a whole bunch of vaginas there. And so in that discomfort, I connected with the woman sitting next to me, the stranger. And so we were talking sipping our wine, as you do when you're looking at a whole bunch of those. And I found out she was a life coach. And I thought, oh, I think I need your services. So yeah, we talked and she turned me, not only did she help me by finding what I needed to do next, which was her acronym for saying, the N is what's not working for you. And the E is what do you expect to happen? And the X is what would be extraordinary. And T would be what would be timely. So I really kind of gained my spark back, gained my joy back. And she also turned me on to this book, Essentialism. So this is what we're going to talk about tonight. And there are so many things in this book that will just change your life. And I will tell you, I am not an expert on it at all. And I'm a work in progress. And many times I get some of the concepts down and then I fall back into my old routines. And so I felt like, well, maybe if I start lecturing on it, then I will really be an expert on it. But Essentialism, written by Greg McKeown, is really this disciplined pursuit of less, of this idea of really realizing that you can achieve more by discerning what's most important and doing less. So you can really go big on the stuff that really matters to you, so you can really create a life that is more meaningful, more in control, and more balanced. So tonight we are going to talk about a few things. Definitely everything we learn here, I want you to grab a paper and pen, and you can see where you can apply these to both your work and at home. But as women dental professionals, we'll learn how the essentialist mindset can improve their health and wellness. And you learn just right there that I needed to do something to regain a balance in my life and my health and well-being of my health. We want to increase productivity by understanding how each choice has a trade-off. You'll learn how to recognize which projects yield the greatest results, because you'll find out not all efforts yield the same amount of results. We want to gain the courage to set boundaries. For us women, well, I'll speak for myself. Boundaries has always been a challenge, but not only to set those with our patients, but our team, our colleagues, and develop the courage to say no, and discover ways to increase morale, decrease stress, and hire the best team in the dental office. We're going to be able to execute on these things so that they become easier, and we'll know when to say yes to both in our practice and in our home. One of my favorite quotes from the book is, if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. So we really need to be able to find that space in our mind and shift our mindset that it matters what we're doing, and our life is defined by how we live it, and not allow someone else to write the narrative for us. So how can we achieve more by doing less? We're going to talk about the non-essentialist mindset throughout tonight and the essentialist mindset. So the non-essentialist, which I was and still trying not to be, because it is definitely a process of what you become, not what you do. But we think that we're all things to all people, and we just have this undisciplined pursuit of doing more and everything. And we live a life that really is just not satisfying. And if you look at this, where your energy is and you're dispersed all over the place, kind of think of it like our taking our radiographs and radiation being scattered all over the place, that until we colonize it, that we just, focus energy into one area. And where you see in the essentialist mindset, then it can actually yield even further. And also, I want you guys to think about this. Who taught you that you had to do so much, or you had to be, quote unquote, an overachiever? For me, my mother, African-American woman, was raised in segregation, and she always taught me, because there were so many things that she didn't have the privilege to do, or opportunities, and were looked over in many situations, that I was always going to have to give 110% more just to be noticed. And so it was ingrained in me that it wasn't enough to do well in school. I had to do extremely well, and just take all the hard classes, and all the stuff that you're doing. I mean, we're all dentists, and you performed well academically, but it was not enough to just be involved in activities. I had to be the president or a leader in that activity or an organization. It wasn't enough to have a hobby in skating. I wanted to be a competitive figure skater. And so I would go to practices before school, and my mom sacrificed so much. I had two younger sisters. At the time I was figure skating, they were like 1.5 and 2 years old, because I'm much older than them. And single mom, and she would get them ready and take them to the ice rink before school at 5 a.m., take me to school, and then after school we can go to swim. Swim. My daughter swims to skate. So that's where it was ingrained in me that I had to do so much all the time and spread myself out too thin. So it's taken 47 years to try to unwind all of that. The 3 elements in the book that you'll always want to go to, and it's a cyclic. We need to, it's almost opposite of what we're talking about in doing less. At first, you have to do more by exploring. You have to explore all the opportunities, the people, the things that are happening, so that you can really hone in and see what is the most important thing for you that you can contribute at your highest. Then once you figure that out, then you need to eliminate all the other stuff that doesn't support that, right? So we go to explore, then we eliminate. We're just kind of discerning what's most important, getting rid of the rest. And then we want to build a disciplined pursuit, or a strategy in executing these things, not only easier, but actually effortlessly. So explore, eliminate, and execution. So in the essence, to discern the trivial many from the vital few, there are 3 main core things here to remember. We want to know our power of choice. I choose to versus I have to. And you ask these questions as opportunities or requests come to you. I choose to do something versus I have to do it. Be discerning. Only a few things truly matter versus all things are important. And the one that's so important is the trade-off by I can do anything but not everything, but versus I can do both. Because honestly, you just cannot do both. If you're saying yes to something, you're trading it off for something else. Okay. So when these things come up, this is a time that you really need to write out what it is that's most important to you. By you coming here today, like I said, you took this hour versus your trade-off is to either have time to finally wind down by yourself and get a book, dinner, or be with the family. And I think before we move on, I see there's a question. I don't know if you can read the question for me or if I should click on it.
It was more of a comment. It was a, oh my goodness, this presentation is absolutely brilliant. So that's important to hear too, Dr. Haisha.
Love you guys. Thank you. All right, we're gonna get to the nitty-gritty too. Thanks for indulging me in the beginning. So the highest point of frustration is when we want to do everything. Why? Because it's popular. When right now. Now, the first thing that comes to me is me and checking emails. Why do I need to check the email right away? Because a lot of times I have not set aside what is important or prioritize my day, so I'm doing that. When it comes to social media, now I'm seeing everyone's doing TikTok. Should I do TikTok? By me learning how to do TikTok and the time to put it together and getting through all the barriers and taking 1,000 times to learn what it is, I really could have done something that was more important for what I'm striving to do in my business. So working at that just becomes to be just a frustrating event when you're doing all these things because other people are doing it, or you feel like you have to do everything versus going big on one thing. Versus in our highest point of contribution, you do what? You do the right thing. Why? Because it's the right reason. And when it's the right time. So always just thinking about that when you're having a request to perhaps maybe join a board. Is this the right thing to do? Or is you're doing it because you don't want to say no and hurt the feelings? And we're going to talk about, how to say no. Okay, so when the book, is divided in those 3 sections: the exploration, and the elimination, and the execution. So to practice exploration, you have to escape. And this is a way, in order to have focus, you have to set aside a place, a time that you will not be distracted. This day and age, there's so many ways that people can get a hold of you, that you are constantly being just pulled from so many directions. Someone sends me an email and I don't get to the email, then they are able to message me on Facebook, or it's coming on a DM at Instagram, or if they text. It's just so much. And so your mind is never having a time to really just be quiet and be still. So this is why I've learned about having a good quiet time in the morning. I call it a quiet time where I have some time to read over scripture, I pray, I meditate, and also in the morning I set aside time to exercise, and 2 days a week I'll try to do yoga. But back to escaping is in that time that you're really just quieting your mind and asking the questions, exploring what is really truly important, and realizing where you tend to keep doing the same things that is not really contributing to your highest. At this time, it's great to journal if you like to journal. For me, that has been a challenge, but once I do it, it's great. And I always feel great about doing it because when I go back, I can see what was the things that keep showing up in my life, and maybe looking to see when things I kind of repeat the same issues, as far as like overcommitting and saying yes to things that I know I don't really have time to do. So look and listen is when you're really just kind of scanning these things that come to you that's competing for your attention. It's almost like becoming a journalist of your own life, to really listen to what is clamoring for your attention, and then those opinions to be able to say what it is you really need to do by almost listening to your inner self. You can't do that if you don't give yourself the quiet time, the undisturbed, uninterrupted time that you can really hear yourself. We're going to talk about play and how it really amplifies the executive function of the brain, and of course it's an antidote to stress. Sleep, that's the one thing I'm really working on a little bit more. But your most important asset is yourself. And you have to get the sleep so that you can improve your health, your productivity, and your creativity. And selection, extreme selection, how to have an absolute yes. And if it's not, then it's a hell no. Okay, so let's then break it down here, the space design. So the non-essentialist really thinks that they are too busy to be able to set aside time to do that. And so, but yet, when you don't, you start to fill that time with things that are not essential, like the emails and the social media and responding to the texts and just being too available all the time. You know, I picked the morning time because that's when, in my household, everyone's still asleep and the world is still not quite up, that I can really think and brainstorm uninterrupted. So we create a space to explore. You can time block it in your calendar. I still actually have it, but I would write Miracle Morning. There's a book called by Hal Elrod, Miracle Morning, that's great, to really set aside that this is what I'm going to do at 5:30 in the morning every day. One other thing you can do about escaping and not feeling like you have to check emails all the time is having an email bounce back. I see this on, you see it like on a vacation one, but if you know that you have a tendency to want to answer all the emails versus attacking what's most important at that time and trying to get the busy things off your plate that need your attention right there, yet you go to emails, and then that kind of snowballs into a bigger effect where you're falling behind in other areas. To say, I received your email, thank you so much, it's important to me, please give 2 to 3 business days for me to respond. And that way, then I have set or time blocked a chunk of time that I will do all my emails. But instead, sometimes at work, when the most important thing at work right there, of course, is seeing the patients, but in between is to kind of catch up on my charts, because I don't know if you're like me, I absolutely hate doing my charts. If there's somebody has a course on how to get your charts done on a timely manner, that I would need to take that. But then I could actually go and do my charts versus checking the emails and know that I will be able to get to that later. Play. Play doesn't just help us to explore what is essential. It's essential in and of itself. I always say embrace the wisdom of your inner child. Play is important not only for you, but also for your team. So I want to talk about our practice as well. You don't have to be just a pediatric dentist to have fun. Dressing up for Halloween is a lot of fun, but involving your team in events such as bowling or Top Golf or floral arrangements or scrapbooking, it allows us to kind of broaden just the options that are out there, increases the creativity. But we're not, those non-essentialists think that play is just trivial and such a waste of time. But if you incorporate it, it will spark exploration and creativity, not only from you, but from your team. Maybe you're trying to come up with a new marketing campaign to drive your new patients, or how you're going to share the information that now, you've been taking some implantology courses and this is a new service that you're offering, how to be creative. And when you engage in play, it can really be helpful. When you talk about also what brought you joy as a child, I used to love, well, as you know, I used to figure skate. And as far as a hobby, I think it's important for us all to have hobbies. And I didn't realize that till my husband asked. He said, especially when I was going through that time that was hard, he's like, do you have a hobby? I was like, yeah. He's like, what? I was like, well, I mean, my kids, I love seeing them in their activities. It's like, that's not a hobby. I'm like, well, I don't know, I don't have time to have a hobby. And so we really need to have a time to kind of shut off our brain from all that's going on. And so that we can just kind of exercise that area of our brain to really just nourish ourselves and our soul and do what you did when you love, what you love to do when you were a child, and think about incorporating play in your life. The shattering the sleep stigma, especially new moms, and or it can even go back to when we were in dental school and up late studying, that we really did sacrifice sleep a lot, thinking that, you know, we're only going to be able to get everything done if we're up till all hours of the night. Sleep is for failures, and sleep is a luxury. In the past, people would say sleep breeds laziness, and I can get it done, I can do it all. But more and more research is showing just how, of course, important sleep is. Almost to the point, there's a research with less than 5 hours of sleep is equivalent to a high blood alcohol level, almost like you've had too much to drink, and affects your decision making. And there's some companies that if their employees had flown in on a red eye, that they weren't allowed to come into work because they would not be able to drive. And I'm sure a lot of us are probably laughing at that, especially some of those who've been on call late, our oral surgeons. And I remember us being up late. That, yeah, sometimes we just had to go on no sleep at all. And Alex, who is, so he's a neurologist and a psychiatrist. He's dual trained. Yeah, he's like one of those smart folks. And he is the residency director at the U of A Department of Neurology. And yeah, so he was hazed coming up in the day of like no sleep as a resident, and you just had to keep on going. And so at first he kind of rolled his eyes that, well, resident had to leave because he couldn't work the next shift because he didn't get so many hours of sleep. But it's important. And now hospitals and companies and organizations are realizing that you need to have sleep to perform well and high and have the priority. And sleep, of course, breeds creativity, and it really helps you to get to your highest level of mental contribution. So before we go to eliminate, I think I see 3 questions. Are they questions or comments or anything, Sheena?
There are a couple comments and then a question.
Okay.
I feel as though if I don't do it all now, someone else will accomplish it before me. This constant urge to say yes to everything so I don't have FOMO. How can I overcome that?
Well, look at that. We're on the FOMO slide right now. Yes, a lot of times we do think that if we don't do it, someone else, but that's one thing that we need to realize, that you are walking in your path that you are to be doing at this time, you know. Really truly believe in that. In due time, the right opportunities will come. And if you continue to say yes to everything, then you're not going to be available when that big thing, that's something that you've really been working for or praying about, comes along. Because then what's going to be hard is then you're going to be in that uncomfortable position where you have to decline the other thing so you can do that. So really, it just, when we go through this, how we're going to edit and discern what's most important, then I hope it'll be easier for you to get rid of that fear of missing out. You know, now it can be like the joy of missing out when you're not going to the baby shower, let's say, but because you can spend more time with the family, or you can go take a drive, or, you know, do something that you wanted to do, yet you could send a baby gift instead. But I know that's trivial, not what you meant, but I'm just saying that by not taking your time up with all the other stuff, it can free you up for something that's most important. Anything else there?
No, just a couple comments about that they love your story, and also that COVID and office shutdowns has really allowed this person to find clarity on what is essential to her.
Hasn't it though? Right. Yes, it definitely has. And I will say this, you know, one of the biggest steps myself and my partner during COVID, it gave us a time to really self-reflect. And as I told you, I was 3 practices and 3 children. And, you know, we decided that it would be best now to really, after COVID, and just reevaluating, assessing our lives, and it kind of flowed into our professional life, that we decided to sell a practice. And now it's just, and it's not that we're less busy really, but there was so much that was taken up in my mental capacity with the 3 practices, of like having to rotate between the 3. If there was something I needed to follow up on a patient, I would need to email myself, because I wouldn't be back to that practice in maybe 3 days or more if I was at the other one a couple days. And so just that mental, my bandwidth was just like stretched. Yeah, you know, that's something that we decided to do. And I was like, that's extreme essentialism, but now it just helps us to kind kind of hone in that energy and focus it on our two and our team and getting more systems and structures because it was weighing on them as well. Okay, so on elimination, the selection to the extreme, when you say yes to every request, your criteria is like, if someone I know is doing it, I should do it too, and that, as we saw, will lead you to that highest point of frustration versus contribution. One way to really help you eliminate things is this concept of say yes to the top 10% of opportunities. You know, it's a 90% rule. And you can think of it as like how you would scale or grade something from 0 to 100. First, I'm going to kind of share what example he gives in the book of your closet. And when you're trying to clean out your closet, and you will hold up items, of course it's expensive, and to decide if you're going to donate it or keep it is really to say, you know, how much would I pay for this if I didn't already own it? And then you kind of rate it from there. So, you know, or how much do you love it? Do you love it 90% and above? Then you're going to keep it. I thought about this in the practice setting on hiring your team. When you're going through the resumes and sometimes we try to kind of fluff around, well, she has a really great personality, but yet she's not X-ray certified, but we could train her. So it's the easy rule that you can say is such as extreme selection of rating them. Are they 90% and above? If they're a good hire, then you hire them. But there's no in between. So 90 and above hire, and if it's below 90, you go on to the next. So having that kind of extreme thing kind of doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room, and it helps you to really decide on, you know, what should you eliminate and what should you keep. When you're looking at all the organizations you're involved with your, you know, sorority or community service or a board, what is really contributing to what aligns with your goals and your values, and that's something that you can eliminate or edit out. Another way of kind of helping you on selection when opportunity comes a knocking is to kind of fill out this grid. So what opportunities being offered to you? Let's say you are looking to buy a practice. What you would do is write down in the boxes, what are the minimum criteria for you to consider this offer, or perhaps is joining a practice. You know, the minimum thing is it needs to be in a certain city, or it needs to be a certain pay rate or a certain schedule that you want. The extreme things, what would be ideal, you could put also that is it's a solo practice, or that they have a 401k plan. So how it helps you decide is if it doesn't fulfill the 3 minimum criteria, then it's an automatic no, on to the next. And then as far as the extreme, if it satisfies the minimum, at least 2 out of the 3 boxes are checked, then this is an opportunity you should consider. So think about that when opportunities come, you know, for those are maybe doing something adjacent to dentistry, you know, if you're an entrepreneur and an opportunity comes to partner or something like that, you know, is this the right thing to do? And you can kind of go through this criteria. Eliminate. So how to clarify your purpose and intentions to live in alignment with your values. You know, a team that lacks leadership will lack focus. When you really can define your essential intent, and that's really a decision that if a decision that settles 1,000 later decisions. You know, all of us have already done essential intent when we decided that we wanted to become dentists. From that moment, when we were in undergrad, or maybe you did it as a post-bac, you decided you want to be a dentist, so we had to have the right courses. I mean, every decision you made was guided towards that goal. The courses we needed, where we were applying, our extracurricular activities, who we were going to shadow, how many hours we were going to shadow, where did we want to go to school, everything, it kind of helped us make that decision, and it helped get a greater sense of purpose and chart your life's path. I have a diagram in the next slide that would kind of help you in using essential intent for creating a mission statement for your practice. Saying no, people pleasers like me, listen up. This is the easiest way to eliminate stuff. You know, a lot of people say, Layla, I just don't know how you do it all. I just know how you do it. And sometimes I'm like, I don't either. But it really is what I'm trying to empower myself with, and I'm empowering for you, is to learn how to say no. And uncommit and edit your life is always worth it. Sometimes it's hard, but it's something that's so important. And for us, setting boundaries to protect our plan and our energy. So essential intent, let's talk about this and clarifying that for like a making a mission statement. You know, non-essentialist is kind of vague and general. They have concrete quarterly objectives, but they lack inspiration. So you don't inspire your team. It has a value, but no guiding principles. Whereas, you know, the essentialist mindset is to have both something that's both concrete and inspirational. It has meaning and memorable, and it makes one decision that eliminates thousands later decisions that we talked about. Think of Southwest Airlines. They knew exactly what they were doing when they decided on their company. So when things come up, it's easy for them to go back to their mission of making sure that their airfare stays low and they can easily get their passengers to their destination with fun. So when other airlines were starting to charge for bags, they were easy to say, no, that's not what we're doing. That's not our intent. When we think about mission statements in dentistry, sometimes it can be very inspirational, but general, like we want to grow bright smiles across our city. That's very, very inspirational, but kind of general. And a bland kind of value-driven one is like, we believe in family-centered dentistry, but it's not giving us any concrete information. The quarterly objectives is more like, this is something you can do, not so much as your mission statement, but, our quarterly, we want to have so many new patients and conversions and that way. So let me help kind of paint this picture a little bit more clearly. Brad Pitt, actor and social entrepreneur, he was really appalled by how the lack of focus was after Hurricane Katrina in helping and rebuild the city. And so he formed a nonprofit called Make It Right. And his mission statement was so concrete and inspirational, where it said, we will build 150 green homes, storm-resistant homes for residents in the lower 9th Ward. So that was inspirational because they were going to do so much. And then also it allowed for something that could be measured, something that you create or you state that you can measure and know when you've actually achieved it. So that was something you can kind of play with your team to really work on that. So learn to say no to people and projects that do not align with your goals. So how to say no without using the word no, and really just being able to say no with grace and confidence. And the thing that really struck me that helps me now is saying no to, when you're saying no, you're not saying no to the requestor, you're saying no to the request. So if someone comes to you and asks, this is an example that happened to me. When I was building up the board for my nonprofit, the Diversity in Dentistry Mentorships, I will always respect this person that I asked, and she's like, well, let me think about it. Right now I have a lot going on. It's not because I don't appreciate and join you in your cause, but I wouldn't be able to give my all to it. And I know you need someone to really help. And so, it just really helped that I knew she wasn't saying no to me, and I didn't take it personally. But when people are asking you, just pause, just say, I need to check my calendar. I'm not sure right now. You have a lot of things going on, but you want to get back to them. Okay, you can say no, like if someone was asking to be on the board, like, no, but I do have a couple friends who have been wanting to find something to get involved with. Let me check with them and see if I can get you guys in contact. And we talked about the email bounce backs, possibly doing that. If you're in a corporate setting, and let's say you're the lead dentist and you're in charge of doing all the performance reviews, but yet um, the manager is asking you to make the call schedule, you can then ask, okay, right now I'm doing this. What should I deprioritize so that I can get that done for you? So it's not that you're saying no, but it's like you just putting it back into them, the saying, I am already doing this that you've asked me to do. How would you like me to proceed? And so then it kind of puts it back in their court. And use humor. Hey, do you want to help me move? I need to move. Do you have a truck? And they're like, no, I'm not going to do that. Or no, I'm not going to run the marathon because I don't like to run. So just really thinking about no is the best way of eliminating the things that are taking all your time. Now let's get some freedom from setting boundaries and limit yourself. When you are a non-essentialist, you think you have limits, or think if you have limits, you will be limited. You see boundaries as constraining and exert an effort to attempting to the direct no. But boundaries are important because once you do it, then you're limitless in what you can do. And it kind of sets rules in advance to eliminate the need for a direct no. So when I first started practicing, before I had associate and then a partner, it was really hard for me to say no. And in fact, I had a team who I kind of let run over me and not even letting me have a voice in my own practice. And it took some time for me to find my voice and find my strength and know that, get over the whole imposter syndrome that I was a new dentist and a female. But you'll be stretched because people will test you, your team. Sometimes I think we all know that certain requests that come from our team members would never ever even be brought up to our male counterpart, and so I have made like a very comprehensive handbook to the point where it comes down to the color of the nail polish and everything as far as time off and how to request it. So that, and if anything comes up, then I can simply say, oh, well, what does it say in the handbook? So this is important with our team, our office managers, our owner-associate relationships. Have your partnership agreement, your associate agreement, so you know what is expected for you on your schedule and call. Corporate dentistry management, and patients, and after-hours emergency. And I'll share quickly that it has been always hard for me on my boundaries as far as taking call. We're only on call for our patients of record, but there were times when a patient that wasn't ours was having an abscess and I felt bad, and then I'm coming in, but then that wasn't fair to my assistant at all for us to do some stretch or have a blur boundary there. And so now we get the calls, we screen the calls, the doctors, and then we'll have the assistant call the patient back and relay the message. So that kind of helps take down that barrier. And so execute. How can we make doing the vital things almost effortless? And so going through these, the buffer is very important because a lot of times when we're preparing for something, but yet you don't have a buffer on your next project that you're supposed to do, it almost decreases the quality of work that you're doing. So because you're anticipating what you need to do. So make sure that you have a 50% of time, or you add on about half of the time it takes to finish something. I was going to be writing a piece on diversity in dentistry for the ADA newsletter. And then my mom had a bilateral pulmonary embolism and she was in the hospital for a week, and I wasn't going to be able to make the deadline. So, I wish I had a buffer to get that done in advance. Finding things to subtract, how to take things that remove the obstacles so that you can really proceed and achieve a goal. In the practice, find the slowest hiker in your team, which is a story he shares of a Boy Scouts that were hiking, and it never worked because there were different speeds and there were slow hikers and fast, and they would never get back to their destination at the same time. So they decided to take the weight away from the backpack, the slowest hikers, and put them in the front, and then the faster hikers in the back had a heavier weight, so that you can see where you're bottlenecking. An example in work is perhaps maybe, if you're falling behind, is it your schedule? Are they putting in an emergency at a time slot where it's right before a larger case, and it makes you fall behind? So really looking to who is that person that's doing the schedule, to maybe remove them and put someone else who can help. Or is it taking x-rays? Was another example I had. If you have a new assistant who's being trained by someone who's not really training them how to be efficient, then perhaps it'd be better to remove them from that position and have someone else until they're all trained properly. So to minimize friction. Progress, embrace this, reward yourself as you go along. If you're trying to exercise daily, really reward yourself on the progress you're making. And they'll help you just to continue to achieve your goal. And the routine is so important as well. As once you're in a routine of what you're having for breakfast, or the schedule that you have on these days, you're doing a certain amount of things versus that, it does make more space in your brain so that you can focus on other things. And so that can help you with your creativity and making you execute those things that you want to eliminate or what you wanted to focus on even more effortlessly. And lastly, focus, and how important it is to really be mindful when we're so busy. And when I talk about losing control, you're spinning out because of all the things you're thinking about in the past and in the future. And so we want you to be focused. I love the acronym WIN. Do what's important now. When obligations and tasks are competing for you, you can have more focus. You can pause and get present in what's in front of you. So I don't want us worrying about what's happening at home when we're at work, and when we're at work or we're at home, we're worrying about work, but really being present where we are each time of the day. So we unpacked a lot. Just a quick recap, and I know we can talk even more examples of how we can explore to make space to find what's truly important, what we can eliminate and how we can eliminate it, and really what we need to do to execute on these to truly be able to live a life of that has meaning to us. And so I will end here with the youngest essentialist that I know, my daughter, Michaela. And of course, this wasn't last year because no one could travel, but this was just in 2019, and we were in Costa Rica. And if anybody wants to go there, talk to me because I have the best itinerary for you. But this is our gorgeous view. I mean, in the mornings, you could smell the rain, and it's just the dew on the trees and the canopy of the green tree. It's just gorgeous in this clear sky. And she's actually, my future veterinarian, and she loves all God's creatures. And she loved just looking for the monkeys and the critters and, and the birds. The macaws were beautiful. Those macaws were just a brilliant red with these colorful wings. And the funny thing about it, though, they sound horrendous. Like their bird call is nothing as beautiful as their outer appearance. And I always wanted to get a video of them. And every time I missed it. And so I was inside the house when I could hear them coming. And they were so loud, like squawking, like, ah, ah. And I'm like, Michaela, the macaws are coming, the macaws are coming. And I'm looking everywhere for my phone. I couldn't find it at the time. I looked in my purse. Was it in my backpack? I couldn't find my backpack. And then I remember Nicholas was playing a video game. Anyway, I couldn't find it anywhere. So I run out there. I said, Michaela, we missed the macaws. And she just looked at me, and she just looked up, and she's like, Mom, I saw them. I was right here. And I just remember that because she was present and I wasn't. And in our lives, if you have a family or if you don't have a family, if we're not present on the things that are most important, when we look up, they're going to be gone. And I share my story with you because I don't want you to have to go through life-changing, life-threatening illness to realize that you've lost control of your life. I want you to really think about a time that you feel like you have lost control. And really, I challenge you to write 2 things tonight that you will eliminate so that you can live a life that's more balanced, more control, and more meaningful. Because if you just close your eyes and envision a life that where you're not overstretched, you're not overcommitted, and you're not exhausted, just sit with you that and see how you feel. So we have a lot to do. Still have a lot to do, and we can do it together. And I just really, really want to thank you for your time. And I'd love to connect with you. And I know I kind of hurried through the end because I wanted to honor your time. But if you would like the handout, if you go to my website and just sign up on the mailing list, I will email the PDF, the slides over to you. But I'm happy to answer some questions. I wanted to give some time. It's 7 o'clock on the dot, but I'm happy to answer anything. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Haisha. We have a couple comments. People really love the presentation. They agree that COVID has allowed them to reset their life's choices. And then someone does have a question. Can you please discuss how you specifically dealt with professional burnout in your practice? What are some changes you made right away versus long-term?
Yeah, well, it definitely with burnout, I think at any time we're all going to do it. But I have found that finding something that reinvents yourself. I will tell you, after having the life coach and the book, I went on this journey of self-reflection and self-development, where I coined it like the reinvention of Layla. So I knew in my heart I love speaking. And so in 2018, I wanted to start speaking. So I submitted to the AAPD's like breakfast rounds. And then I made a vision that that's what I do. And then, I'm making little steps, and it's taken a couple years, and I'm here today. But I also think it's very important to find a niche in your practice, something that is new and exciting. So I, did some extra training in lasers, and I'm doing frenectomies, and that brings me so much satisfaction and joy to see an immediate result of an infant who's not able to nurse, or a mom who's in so much pain that she's about to give up on nursing. And now I can be a part of the cure for that by releasing these tongue and lip ties. So finding a niche. So if you're in general dentistry, is it learning more about implants, or is it looking into lasers? And that really does kind of regain the spark and help you with burnout. And of course, like we talked about before, finding a hobby. It really does help kind of balance things and get you recharged. And if anything you can do, is just try to find some time just to quiet your mind. And when you're at your wit's end, all the answers are within us. And I am just prayerful in that quiet time that I can hear the direction and steps that I'm supposed to take. So I would love to talk to you more. Feel free to email me.
Okay. And then the last question that we have so far is, this was incredible. So many wonderful tools. Thank you. What is a good first step, something to do tonight or tomorrow to cultivate more essentialism now?
Yes, well, definitely just write it down. I would say just brain dump it out. I was working on a workbook with a small group as we were kind of doing a book club. And, we kind of in the beginning talk about, where did you learn to overachieve and do all this stuff? And so kind of write that story. But then write down all the hats you wear. Are you a mother? Are you you're a dentist. You're a woman dentist, but are you a mother? Are you a business owner? Are you a daughter? I'm in this situation now. I'm in this sandwich generation where I'm caring for my mom who's ill, but yet I still have kids. So you're a caregiver, daughter, wife. And then from that, all those hats that you wear, what is pulling for your time in each of those areas? Your churchgoer, your sorority sister, is there some time maybe this is not the right season for you to be active in a certain organization? So that's what I want you to do, is just to really brain dump it all out and then go from there. And then you know what you don't really want to do. You know what it is that you're just going through because maybe a friend is involved and you don't want to hurt their feelings. So this is where we need to just find our strength and be courageous and speak up, find your voice. Because when I went through all that stuff, going to work when I wasn't ready, I gave up and I lost my voice, and I just I wasn't there. I didn't care. And that's what we don't want to happen for you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Haisha. I really enjoyed the presentation. I can tell from the comments in the chat and in the Q&A, everyone else has really enjoyed it as well. Thank you all for being with us tonight.
Thank you, guys. We got this.
Thank you.
And just remember to
everybody.
thank you, guys. Have a great night. And just
Thanks so much. Take care.
live
Bye.
essentially.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.